Here's a true fact about Minnesota that still gives people chills. Along Highway 61, just north of Duluth, there's a rest stop with a view of Lake Superior. Peaceful, scenic, until you walk too close to the woods behind it. Since the early 2000s, travelers have reported hearing knocking sounds coming from the forest. Steady, rhythmic, like someone rapping on wood. In 2010, a maintenance worker wandered back there after hearing it for the third time. He followed the sound and found a sealed concrete well, half buried under moss and leaves. There was a rusted plaque bolted to the side. It read, "Closed by State Order, 1978." No one could say why, but here's the disturbing part. Records show that in the late 70s, multiple people vanished from that exact rest stop, most of them late at night. One family's child was never found. The case went cold. To this day, people still report knocking from the woods. Some say it's pipes, some say it's wind in the trees. Others say it knocks back.
I used to love ice fishing alone. Just me, the cold, the quiet, and a frozen lake. Nothing else clears my head like that. But I haven't been back out since last March. It was late in the season, early spring, and most people had already packed up their gear for the year. That was fine by me. I liked it when the lake was empty, no distractions. Just the sound of the wind across the ice and the occasional tug on the line. I'd driven up to Lake Oster in northern Minnesota. Not a big lake, but far from town and known for decent late-season walleye. I set up my little pop-up shack near the southern edge, a good distance from the tree line. I brought food, coffee, a couple beers, and enough supplies for a 3-day weekend. The first day was uneventful until the afternoon. Around 3 p.m., I looked up from my line and saw something strange out on the ice, near the tree line on the far shore. A kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing completely still, facing my direction. Wearing a red snowsuit, the kind with the hood that zips all the way up. At first, I thought maybe he was with a group I hadn't noticed, but there were no vehicles, no footprints around him. I stood up and waved. Nothing. He didn't move, just kept standing there, watching. I looked down to grab my phone, just for a second, and when I looked back up, he was gone. I scanned the tree line, the ice. Nothing. No sound, no movement. It was like he vanished. I figured maybe he walked off, and I just didn't see it. The next day it happened again. Same time, same spot, the kid in the red suit, standing completely still. But this time, he was closer. Maybe half the distance from the day before. Again, no tracks, no other people. I watched him for a full minute. He never moved. I shouted, "Hey, are you okay?" The wind carried my voice, but he didn't react. I grabbed my binoculars from my bag and raised them, and I swear his face didn't look right. It was pale, too pale, and the way he stood, it was stiff, like his arms never bent. His hood was up, and I couldn't make out his eyes. When I lowered the binoculars to adjust them, he was gone again. Just like that. I was officially weirded out. I tried to shake it off, told myself maybe it was some local kid messing around, or I was just tired from being out in the cold too long. Still, that night I couldn't sleep well. I kept thinking I heard soft thumps outside the shack. Maybe shifting ice, maybe the wind, maybe not. On the third day, it got worse. It was colder that morning. I went out early to drill a new hole and check my gear. Everything was fine. But by early afternoon, when I looked up from the ice, he was there again. This time, maybe 30 yards away. Same red snowsuit, still. Silent. I didn't waste time. I stood up and shouted, louder than before, "Hey, kid! Do you need help?" No response. I walked toward him, slow but firm. 10 steps, 15. I glanced down for just a second to watch for cracks in the ice. When I looked up, he was gone. Again, but this time, There were footprints. Not many, just a few, leading from the spot where he'd been, right up to where I was standing. Then they stopped. No return path, just a few prints like someone had appeared, stood still, and then vanished. That night was the worst. Around 1:30 a.m., I was dozing off in my sleeping bag when I heard it, crunching snow. Slow, deliberate footsteps around the outside of the shack. I held my breath. They circled once, then again. Then nothing. No knock, no voice. Just silence. I lay there for what felt like an hour before I got up the courage to look outside. I didn't see anything, just the empty lake lit up by moonlight. But the next morning I saw the prints. They were small, child-sized, and they led from the shack out toward the center of the lake. I followed them for about 50 yards, and then they just stopped, like whoever made them had been lifted right off the ice. That was it. I packed everything up and left that morning, cutting my trip short. I didn't care about the fish anymore. I didn't even care about getting my deposit back from the shack rental. Back home, I started searching for answers. I figured maybe there had been an accident. A missing kid, something that would explain what I saw. Nothing. No local news reports, no Amber Alerts, no missing person cases that matched. I even checked old newspaper archives from years back. Still nothing. But then I found a comment on a fishing forum, buried in a thread about strange things seen on frozen lakes. One user, anonymous, mentioned seeing a kid in a red snowsuit near Lake Oster in 2009. They described the exact same thing. Watching. Silent. Disappearing without a trace. That sent chills down my spine. I called the local sheriff again just to see if there had been any similar reports. The deputy on the phone got quiet when I described what I saw. Then he said something that stuck with me. "You're not the first one to call about a kid out there, but there's never been a missing report that matches. You should stay off that lake if it's messing with your head." That's all he said. Like he didn't want to talk about it. It's been months now. I haven't been back, haven't even looked at my gear, but I still have dreams. I'm out on the lake again. It's quiet, peaceful. I look up, and there he is, closer than before. Each time a little bit closer. This happened during my second year at the University of Minnesota. I usually studied on the second floor of the library. It's updated, busy, has outlets. But one night during finals week, every table was taken. I was desperate for a quiet place, so I went exploring. That's how I ended up on the fourth floor. It's older, barely renovated, and honestly kind of creepy. The lights are dimmer, and the silence feels heavier, like the kind where you can hear yourself blink. At the far end was a reading room I'd never seen before. No one was in it. The lights were on, but it felt like I'd stepped back in time. Creaky floors, dust on the windowsills, and those green glass banker lamps with the pull chains. It was perfect. Or so I thought. I set up my laptop at a big oak table near the back. When I looked up, I noticed a short stack of books sitting on the window ledge. They looked old. Really old. No barcodes, no printed titles. Just worn-out covers and what looked like numbers written in pen on the spines. Out of curiosity, I picked one up. The paper inside was thick and yellowed, filled with small, neat handwriting. Not printed, handwritten, no table of contents, just pages and pages of journal entries, each dated like a diary. Some of the entries were strange. One described someone hearing whispers behind them while studying in this exact room. Another talked about watching the shelf blink at midnight. I thought it had to be some kind of creative writing project. Maybe a student left it behind by mistake. I opened the second book, same style. Journal entries, no name. The third one, though, froze me in place. Inside the cover, in the same handwriting, was my full name, first and last, spelled exactly like mine, not a common name. I flipped through the pages, and the first entry was dated that day, today's date, at 10:04 p.m., the exact time I opened the book. It said, 10:04 p.m. He's here again, sitting at the back table, third chair from the right, just like last time. I looked around the room. Empty. I looked at the shelf. Nothing. My skin was crawling. I closed the book and shoved the whole stack into my backpack. I had this weird urge to get them out of sight. I walked downstairs to the front desk and asked the librarian if the books were part of a new collection or student exhibit. She looked confused and asked to see them. When I opened my bag, they were gone. Not stolen, just gone. My bag was empty. She gave me a weird look like I was wasting her time, and I went home feeling like I'd lost my mind. The next day, I came back during daylight to try and make sense of it. I went straight to the 4th floor. The reading room was locked. Not temporarily. A metal key lock was on the outside. There was a sign taped to the door. Staff only. Room closed indefinitely. I stood there for a minute, trying to process it. Then I noticed someone behind the glass in the door. A figure, standing perfectly still in the middle of the room. I could only make out the outline. They weren't moving. When I blinked, they were gone. I didn't say anything to anyone after that. I didn't want to sound crazy. I just stopped going to the upper floors altogether until about a week later. I got an email from the university library system. A book was overdue under my account. The title, Entry Log, 4th Floor Reading Room, M. Rivera. That's my name. I never checked anything out. I clicked the catalog link. No listing found. I went to the desk again and showed the email to a different librarian. She looked up my account, then furrowed her brow. "Sir, you've never checked out anything from this building," she said. "According to our records, you've never even entered the 4th floor." I don't remember what I said after that, I just left. But the weirdest part came later. At the end of the semester, when I went home for break, I was cleaning out my backpack. At the very bottom, under a loose charger cable, I found a piece of paper folded tight into a square. It was a journal page. Same handwriting, same yellow paper. The date was 2 days in the future. It said, "He's coming back. He always comes back. He doesn't remember. But the books do." I never returned to that library. I switched to online materials and off-campus cafes. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that someone, or something, wrote about me before I was ever in that room. I still have the page. I don't show it to people. What's the point? But sometimes I get library emails about books I've never seen, books that were never cataloged. All with the same subject line, reading room entry, overdue. This happened 2 winters ago, when I took a seasonal job closing down a campground up north, near Eerie, Minnesota. I was between semesters, needed extra cash, and didn't mind the cold or isolation. The job sounded simple. The summer camp had about 20 cabins, a main office building, and a maintenance shed. I was hired to stay a couple weeks past the season's end to make sure all the water lines were drained. Pipes were wrapped, heaters shut off, and everything was locked up before the deep freeze hit. After that, they'd just let the snow bury the place until spring. The manager left after the first few days, handed me the keys and said I'd be alone from then on. Said I could sleep in the office building, had heat, Wi-Fi, and a stocked kitchen. I figured I'd catch up on movies and enjoy some peace and quiet. At first, that's exactly what it was. Every day, I'd walk the trails, double-check the locks on each cabin, and log everything in the guest book inside the office. I even chopped some wood, kept a fire going in the fireplace. It felt like a paid vacation. Until about a week in when something weird happened. One morning, I went out to check the cabins, and cabin 6 had its door wide open. I was sure I'd locked it the day before. I always double-checked. There was no wind damage, no animal tracks, just open. I walked in. Everything looked normal, neat. The twin beds were still made, but I noticed the guest log in the cabin had a new signature. E. Maynard, December Moondram. I brought it back to the office and flipped through our official records. No one by that name had stayed here, and no one was supposed to be on the property now except me. That night, I double-checked every cabin before bed, locked and latched. The snow was clean, no prints. I even snapped pictures on my phone of each door, just to prove to myself they were shut. The next morning, cabin 6 was open again. I walked straight there. The door swung lightly on its hinges. I felt sick. The logbook was back on the table, and the name had been signed again. Same handwriting, same name. But now the date said December. Non-Gavite. There were still no footprints in the snow. I called the campground manager, told him someone might be messing around. He laughed it off, said it was probably a local playing a joke or an old counselor sneaking back. I asked if he knew the name E. Maynard. He went quiet, then said no, never heard of them. That night, I set up a trail cam on a tree across from the cabin. I wanted to catch whoever it was. But the next morning, when I retrieved the camera, it was off. Like the batteries had been yanked. The door was open again, same logbook. New date, December 9. Now I was rattled. I stopped doing the regular rounds, just kept my eyes on that one cabin. Every night I watched from the office window. I even set an alarm for 2 a.m. to check. I never saw anyone. Until one night I heard something different. At exactly 2:13 a.m., I was staring at my screen, half asleep, when I heard 3 distinct knocks at the front door of the office. Not loud, just sharp, deliberate. I didn't move. I waited almost a full minute before I crept over and peeked through the side window. Nothing. No one there. But I swear, I could feel someone standing just beyond the porch light. The next morning, I found the cabin open again. Only this time, there was steam on the cabin window, like someone had been inside, breathing. And inside, the beds were messed up, like someone had actually slept there. The trail cam was gone. That was the last straw. I packed everything up that night and left before sunrise. Didn't care about the paycheck anymore. I drove 4 hours straight to my parents' house and didn't sleep for a week. About a month later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of cabin 6, taken from outside looking in through the window. In the photo, someone was lying in the bed, covered to the neck. But the face? It was mine. I never took that picture. I was never in that bed. I burned the photo. To this day, I don't know who E. Maynard is. I've tried searching the name, found nothing. No records, no social media, nothing connected to that campground. It's like the name only exists on those logbooks. I've had friends suggest maybe it was a squatter, or maybe someone local messing with me, but no one ever explains how they got in without leaving a single track in the snow, or how the trail cam disappeared, or how someone had a photo of me in a place I've never been. Now, anytime I see a wooden cabin, I get this tight feeling in my chest, like I'm going to walk up and see a name written on a paper inside. E. Maynard. And maybe next time it'll say, checked in, and your name will be there.